Seattle hockey fans, happy Wednesday. We are midweek and we got some midweek news about our head coach. We're going to talk about that. And let's go over, as promised on yesterday's episode, the mailbag session that Geoff Baker had as part of the Seattle Times. I thought there were some really interesting nuggets there. Let's get into it on this episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken. This episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sportsbook of Locked On, so make sure you make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/Locked On. That's how you get started today. All right. We talked about it in the cold open, but Dave Hakstol signs an extension. That's right. Not only did we extend Ronnie Francis, but now we extend Dave Hakstol. That's our head coach. And here's the graphic. Extended through 25-26 season. Dave Hakstol's contract with the Seattle Kraken was set to expire after this 23-24 season. So congratulations to Dave Hakstol. Love this graphic. First of all, it's just super clean looking. I love also that we get a backdrop Stanley Cup playoffs. That's right. Dave Hakstol, first ever head coach in history, also takes us to our first playoff berth. Now, I'm not going to name any names because they've already done it themselves. And, we try to show love here on Locked On Kraken, but there are definitely some people repenting, and I should say some accounts repenting for their hashtag Fire Hakstol tweets. There were some things that definitely confused me, even arguably elevated me to wanting to pull my hair out. And if you're an everydayer, one of those things is we don't practice. Do we not practice? Oh, but wait, there's a little nugget in Geoff Baker's mailbag that I want to address on that point. Oh, we're going to get into it. But anyway, congratulations to Dave Hakstol. Those Fire Hakstol tweets are not looking so great now. I always thought he deserved the benefit of the doubt, and I'm glad that the Seattle Kraken are going to give another crack at this Ron Francis and company alongside Dave Hakstol combo. I do think we need to accelerate the process a little bit more than it seems that we're moving in this offseason. But again, we'll talk about that. Let me take you to the announcement. So Dave Hakstol, it's been announced that he will be extended. You can check out NHL.com/Kraken. And here is the story from Allison Lucan. As on-ice success grows, Kraken announced contract extension for the architect of team lineup, system, and culture. Now, there are a lot of really great things in this article, but our media availability with Dave Hakstol is going to be tomorrow, Thursday. So I want to spend the majority of tomorrow's episode talking about Dave Hakstol. So we're not going to do too much. There are some great nuggets in here. Allison even tweeted out some more. Actually, that's what I want to call some attention to. The amazing Allison Lucan, a data-driven storyteller for the National Hockey League, just for hockey overall. And of course, also a member of our award-winning, 2 times over, or 2 years in a row, award-winning Root Sports broadcast team. So you love to see it. But okay, here's what Allison says she didn't put in the article that I thought was really interesting. This is from her social media. And for those watching on YouTube, I will share my screen so you can read along. But I will also, for those listening on audio, read the tweet to you. Here we go. I'm going to make it bigger, so hopefully you can see a little bit better. Starts off saying, fun tidbit that didn't make this story under Hakstol this year. The Seattle Kraken were second best in scoring goals off the rush and best team at scoring goals off turnovers. And they didn't sacrifice defensive responsibility or in top 5 in limiting shot volume against. So again, we're going to get into this a little bit more. I just wanted to point this out because Allison Lucan is an amazing follow. If you're not already doing that, remedy that on the immediate. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Remedy that on the immediate. Here we go. Now we got it. Okay. Remedy that on the immediate. If you're watching on YouTube, you saw we had a little bit of a technical or a graphics glitch, but we got it fixed. Follow Allison Lucan, data-driven storyteller, hockey storyteller, and we absolutely love it. But coming up next on Locked On Kraken, we're going to go through Geoff Baker's mailbag session over on the Seattle Times. Now, I have told you this before. If you're an everydayer, there's not very often I'm going to read an entire article. One, because why? But also two, I do believe in subscription models because I'm just going to say I believe in subscription models. So check out the Seattle Times, check out The Athletic. I will never show the full article here if you're watching on YouTube, but highly encourage you to take a look and or listen to the content that is mentioned on Locked On Kraken. But again, we're going to head over to the Seattle Times. I'll give you some insights on the mailbag questions and Geoff Baker's answers, including, we talking about practice, but particularly conditioning. There was a really interesting question and answer part of the mailbag that, I want to dig into. That's coming up on this episode of Locked On Kraken. As I mentioned to you before, today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by FanDuel. Now we know the Major League Baseball season is in full swing, and this is the time for you to start your betting in Major League Baseball with FanDuel. That's because your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel gets you 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets. Up to $200. That's right. You bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. $200 that you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under and even who you think is going to get the first home run of the contest. All that on an app that is safe. It is secure and it is so easy to use. Plus, those payouts come instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and get up to $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Hey to the hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? All right. The time has come. We're going to get into some mailbag questions. This is Geoff Baker mailbag published on the Seattle Times on July 13th, all right, of this year. And like I said, has some interesting little tidbits here. And so I want to just, take you to some of what were my favorite either viewer or reader questions, and then what were from some of my favorite Geoff Baker answers. But here's the article. Check it out again over on the Seattle Times. Mailbag: have the Kraken improved this offseason, and what moves are left for Seattle? What an intense photo. A fired up Dave Hakstol. It's moments like this which led him to that contract extension that we will talk about on Thursday's episode of Locked On Kraken, so make sure you are tuned in. But here we can see, first, I love this by Geoff Baker. He's got his rally towel up, as well as a poster for his very own Rising from the Deep, the Seattle Kraken, a tenacious push for expansion, and the Emerald City's sports revival. All right, so check out that book by Geoff Baker. But I love these questions. The first question posed to Geoff is somewhat of a doozy, and I think he did a great job answering. And I'm gonna break it down for you. Too long, didn't read. Also, I think you should read. But basically, the gist. Let me read the question, and then I will summarize a little bit of what Geoff said, but then also tell you why I kind of like this as a conversation starter. So the question that comes in is the team as constructed, better, worse, or the same as last year's Seattle Kraken team? How can our GM make a splash and add star power? And Geoff also liked this question, says it's from one of his favorite Twitter followers. I love that. I love some of my loyal viewers, everydayers. We've got Geoff, we've got Striatic, Megan, just so many people that have been great. So anyway, I love that this is, not a first time caller, so to speak. And Geoff, again, likes this question. And I think the reason that anyone likes this is because it's relative. And that's what Geoff gets into. He talks about, how will we know if this is a better team? Well, we really won't know at best until the Seattle Kraken outperform the season 2 team. So that means that this season 3 team, if it's constructed better, at least a definitive way to prove that it's constructed better is that they perform better. So is that 100, how quick do we get to 100 points? How many goals did Jared McCann score? And do we make it past the second round? So I think I've talked about this before for the everydayers, especially the OGers. I'm not really into predictions. I think they're a little silly for a lot of the reasons that Geoff lays out here. It's because people want predictions, but almost never want to really get into the why we get to this. As in, I like to show my work. I actually hate math, but if I did like math more, I'd definitely be a show your work type of gal. I think it's the same when you construct an argument. Show your work. Like, I can say literally anything, and it's obviously my opinion, but if I have a well-informed opinion, I'm more persuasive. So if we have more data, when we have more data on the season 3 Seattle Kraken, then we can answer questions like this. It's really difficult to answer these kinds of questions now, but there is something that Geoff says, and I think it's interesting, and it's mentioned a few times throughout the article. And so I highly recommend that you read the article, but there's an underlying tone of Geoff Baker, his opinion, as I understood it, to be that the way things are moving for the Seattle Kraken in free agency right now, that the Seattle Kraken are banking on Andre Burakovsky not only coming back healthy, but coming back even more effective than last year. And that was one of my big, moments, because yes, I've been trying to, and again, if you're an everydayer, I was like, I'm gonna maybe make some bold predictions, but I need more. I need to know more. I need to see more. I need to understand more. And so Geoff Baker alluding to that perhaps the Kraken are really banking on Andre Burakovsky. Let's just remember what he did last season. He only played 49 games, but in those 49 games, he was almost at 40 points, right? I mean, so Jared McCann got a lot of that praise, and rightfully so. But we almost forget that until Burakovsky went down, he was the leading scorer on the team. 13 goals, 26 points. What? 13 goals, 26 assists for 39 points overall for Andre Burakovsky. Now, how does that measure up to what he did with Colorado last year? The fewest amount of games that he's played in his career have been 53 games. That was his first year with Washington, and then the 2020-2021 season with Colorado. And in both, or I should say in 2020-2021, he was 44-point scorer. His rookie season was his fewest point tally at 22. He had 2 seasons in Washington where he scored a maximum of 25 points. His highest total was the year before last with Colorado, where he played 80 games in 2021-22. So the season he won the Stanley Cup. He played 80 games, 22 goals, 39 assists for 61 points for the Colorado Avalanche. So the best version of Andrei Burakovsky is what he did the season before he became a member of the Seattle Kraken, again with Colorado, winning a Stanley Cup. His worst, air quotes, his worst season or lowest performing season was his first season. So what do we know? That he's gotten progressively better, which is true. Again, those Washington years, I'd have to look back, and this is ignorance on my part, but save for those Washington years from 2017 to 2019, Andrei Burakovsky has improved every season, culminating with 60 points last season, or the season before last, excuse me. He was at 40, effectively, he was almost at 40 points. He was at 39 points. I mean, basically that's 40 points to me, especially knowing that his season was cut short due to injury. So again, this through line in the mailbag, Geoff Baker kind of alluding to the Seattle Kraken might be waiting for Andrei Burakovsky to get healthy and to get some of these numbers that I am realizing now were not on the screen, but I will show them now. I think he believes that the Seattle Kraken are really banking on Andrei Burakovsky just performing really, really well. And you know what? Hey, why the heck not? You paid the man, so let's see him produce. Is that a dangerous strategy? I mean, it could be. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees as you're bouncing back from injury. So it's a big TBD there. But coming up next on Locked On Kraken, let's get into some more of the questions that you, Seattle Kraken fans, asked Geoff Baker and what some of his responses were. Again, not going to read you the whole article. Highly recommend you check it out. #Goodreads by Geoff Baker as curated by the Kraken community. But there is another point that Geoff Baker made throughout the mailbag article that I think is worth talking about. That's coming up next. Hey there, thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily routine. We've gone through a lot. We talked about the contract extension for Dave Hakstol. I've started getting into the mailbag article over on the Seattle Times by Geoff Baker. And we talked a lot about Andrei Burakovsky and maybe the Seattle Kraken putting all of our little Kraken eggs into one sea urchin basket. That was terrible. We're putting all our eggs in one basket, folk. And that basket, at least according to Geoff Baker, is Andrei Burakovsky. So let's get into a little bit more of what Geoff says regarding the moves, including, of course, how this is going to impact some of the players that we see on the come up. And so this is a question that came in from a reader called Ryan. And this is the big question, Ryan, that I also have. And Ryan tweeted at Geoff Baker, the Kraken haven't done much in free agency to improve their squad. They may have even taken a step back from last year. What do they need to do to compete with the big three, Golden Knights, Kings, and Oilers. And the reason I love this is because it also goes to what we talked about on Tuesday's episode, right? We used the Locked On NHL episode segment on the Pacific Division. Dane Seth talked about, can the Seattle Kraken compete with the big three? Or if we make it to the playoffs, do we have to be another wild card effectively? It's an interesting question. Are we going to make it outright as a top 3 team in the Pacific Division? I think right now that's tough. I don't think Calgary is in the mix as much as I thought they were going to be when I started the show. Calgary's got some things to figure out. Vegas is looking pretty solid. I mean, Edmonton remains hungry and unfortunately kind of falls apart in the postseason. And then you've got the Kings. They dabbled their toe, They dipped their toe and they dabbled in the postseason for, what's been quite a little drought for them, but they're looking good. The Kings are always a team that I talk about when I'm like, the Seattle Kraken have to strike while the iron is hot, because if we don't, teams like the Kings, their young talent is going to catch up with us, which is why it's still a little bit concerning for me that the Seattle Kraken have not done more this off season. But what did Geoff Baker have to say? He talked about the demanding style of Dave Hakstol. First of all, I loved that he really talked about this in Allison Lucan's piece that I alluded to earlier. There is a demanding style, and a lot of the structural things do come from Dave Hakstol, as they should. And I do believe that they were misunderstood in season 1, and I don't think that they were perfectly executed in season 2. Anyway, so Geoff mentions his demanding style, Dave Hakstol's demanding style, and can we find players? And this is what Geoff writes. Can the Kraken play Dave Hakstol's demanding system consistently without taking games off? It's a style requiring relentless skating, and the Kraken seemed worn out at times in the regular season and in the playoffs. By the second round against Dallas, they'd look great one night and gassed the next. Can you hear the emotion in my voice? Can you see the frustration in my eyes? I love the system, and I need the Seattle Kraken to keep pace, because if they follow this system, I think we'll be really good. Now, how do we follow that system when arguably the players that played it the best and were the grindingest, grittiest players on our roster in the bottom 6 are gone? Daniel Sprong, gone. Morgan Geekie, gone. Ryan Donato, gone. And as it says in Geoff's article, you also are minus, you're less their goal performances, their assists, their overall points. 21 goals for Daniel Sprong. That being said, he wasn't the dream two-way presence, as Geoff Baker wrote, and I will attest to that. But so how do you get more of the defensive presence and at least equal the offensive presence? And Kyler Yamamoto, Geoff thinks is maybe an upgrade, but he does question if there's enough to at least match what that bottom 6 gave the Seattle Kraken. And again, Geekie, Sprong, and Donato all gone, and they at any point in time were able to move up and down the lineup, but particularly in that bottom 6. So what happens here? The other underlying thing, of course, is goaltending. But I want to save that one because, oh gosh, I do think the Seattle Kraken still need to figure out goaltending. But The other, I just saw something on goaltending and I got a little bit distracted, but there's some good information and good opinion from Geoff regarding the goaltending situation, and I do want to talk about that. So we're just gonna have to come back, maybe not necessarily to Geoff's mailbag, but I've been very uncomfortable. I've been very anxious about our goaltending situation, and I think it's gonna be an all-out fight. But Martin Jones ended up being the right goalie at the right time. We talk about that all the time. Right goalie, right time, making the right plays. It was frustrating at times. It was wild and crazy. Hello, 17 goals against, or not against, but 17 total goals when we played the Kings. Madness, insanity at times. But you can't tell the story of season 2 without him. Can't tell the story of season 2 also without the improvement of Philip Grubauer coming back from injury, trying to really take ownership. And you know what? As much as it makes me anxious, I'm also here for if all of the goalies show up to camp committed, knowing that they have an obligation. Not that you don't in other seasons, but they have to show up. That includes Philip. Not as much, but assuming that he can find his stride again. But all 3 of those goalies are going to have to bring it. And you know what? What Martin Jones did for the Kraken should be indicative of just that. You have to focus. You have to have your A game. What Martin Jones did for us early, what Philip Grubauer was able to do on the back end, including the playoffs. We need all of our guys. We need all of our guys to lock in. And so the big takeaway that I have, whether it's reading this mailbag, whether it's looking at what we have on paper or on Cap Friendly digitally, when I'm hearing from Ronnie Francis, and I'm sure what we'll hear from Dave Hakstol when he talks to media tomorrow, is this is going to be a competitive camp. And I can't wait. I cannot wait. I have circled the dates. My calendar, my schedule is very different. So hook or crook, heck or high water, I plan to be at that training camp because I think it's going to be a grudge match. I also think maybe that's why you bring in a player like Connor Carrick. JT Brown was excitable about how Connor played in training camp and just had so many great things to say about him. So let's go. Whatever we're going to get, they're going through the paces in training camp. And that goes to a point that Geoff made, and everydayers, I did not like how we were conditioned. And I've said this before on this very show, the way that you get past having to take days off and rest days and starting out the gate where your team can't even play the physical style and forechecking style that you want is to bust buns in training camp. They have to bust buns is one of the nicer ways I can say that. The intensity has to be out of the roof. Below the entire, antique roof off of Climate Pledge Arena. That's really the only thing that makes sense and gives me more confidence moving forward if the Seattle Kraken don't make any changes. Of course, I don't think that's going to be the case. We've got to figure out what's happening with Vince Dunn. And I think there's at least 1 or 2 moves that we can still make. But, oh, baby, let's hear what Dave Hakstol has to say about things. We're probably going to have some time on tomorrow's show to take you back to development camp. Because, again, these are building blocks. We've heard from the Firkus Circus, from Edward Shala. Now let's hear from some of the coaches about what the development process is and why it's so critically important for the Seattle Kraken, for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and for all the prospects in our system, wherever they may be playing. You know what to do. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. Hold fast. Stay true. And I will catch you on the next episode of Locked On Kraken. Peace.